All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. This is your boy Bilal Zaidi, and we've got our friends Trung Phan. What's happening, Trung?
Yo, what's happening? I know you guys are in NY. How was the meetup? How was the meetup?
And we also got Jack Butcher. If people don't know who he is already, found a visualized value. Jack, show us your background, mate. You're balling out on us. What is this? Jesus Christ! Look at that.
This is family connections. Celia's family friends let us squat in their place for a couple nights. Very
Up
pleasant.
in NY.
Yeah.
If you're visiting NY and you're on your visualized value budget, still a healthy budget. Where are you gonna stay?
What? Not if I didn't have a place to.
Yeah.
If we didn't have friends to stay. Probably some hotel downtown or something.
Not
it's
going
hard
back
to get
to Crown Heights,
it's hard to
Jack?
get a hotel room. It's hard to get no.
Oh, it's
not in a hurry, mate. Not in a hurry.
Pent up demand, eh? If the listeners or the watchers aren't in our Not Investment Advice Telegram group, I advise you go in there because we post some pretty funny photos and these guys hit the ground and put some pretty funny photos in there. But so you guys met up for dinner last night, is this correct?
Yeah, Trung, we missed you, mate. It was.
All right, so what did we eat? What was on the menu here?
So, Jack, we went to a steak place, and first of all, we were going to get like all this seafood to start, and we were going to get our own steaks. And then the waiter came over and says, "Oh, there's one special." And obviously, we're not going to not do the special. It was this huge, was it tomahawk steak, 35 pounds? Yeah. Sorry, off though, obviously. Ounces, sorry, what did I say? Pounds.
35 ounces, bro. 35 pounds, man. That's like my kid.
Wow, that's hilarious. But yeah, it was the first time we met, man. So in person. So obviously,
that's amazing, bro. I gotta say, whenever the waiter comes over with the special, there's two things that happens in restaurants that they don't take me off. They're hilarious. The number one is when the waiter comes with the special, I never buy. I'm like, bro, I don't want your special, man. Like, I know what I want on this menu. I don't get your special out of my face.
You get your dad jokes ready.
Yeah. Get your special. And the other one is, after like a minute after you receive your dish, they're like, hey, how was the first few bites? They're always the same, man. The first few bites are delicious. Yeah. Bro, do you ever come by? They're just like, hey, so how's the first few bites? It's delicious, man. It's delicious. Let me eat, bro. But that's always funny when they hit you with the specials in the first few bites.
It was the first time we met yesterday. I have to admit, we haven't actually talked about it, obviously, since yesterday. But I've never done this before. Obviously, we've basically become friends over the last year with Trung as well. We've never met Trung in person. And it's a bit of a weird thing at first. You know what I mean? Because you're there and you're like, oh, we kind of know each other, but we never met before. So anyway, it was fun in the end. We brought the ladies out as well for steak night. Neither of them had steaks, but
we had octopus as well, didn't we, Bilal?
Yeah, it was a
nice piece of octopus.
Jumbo octopus. Looked like it was GMO.
Yeah. Did you have it had the tentacle, the whole tentacle?
Oh yeah, whole leg.
Yeah, you're not doing like the little slices where it's just the body, right? You got to go all in.
No, the full body, man. Anyway, so yeah, good to have you here, Jack and Trung. We gotta do the link up, the 3-way link up at some point when it all makes sense. We'll do a live NIA.
We should do it in Whistler, where I just was, man. That was a baller.
That'll be sick.
Do you guys ski at all?
Yeah.
I don't really, but I'd be up for it at some point.
I was like, let me show you something about Whistler. So Whistler is the most visited ski resort in North America. Let me share the screen here. It was also had the 2010 Olympics. Was in Whistler and Vancouver. Oh, damn, I'm showing way too much action here. All right, here, let me show some Whistler. I'll tell you what's genius about these guys. Can you guys see the Whistler here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful.
Well, here's the thing. That's just, you want it during winter. It's insane, man. It's a winter wonderland. Check that out. With
picturesque, man. Fairy tale stuff.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then you got the gondolas are insane. But dude, so I mean, it's a good segue at this point, I guess. I know we want to talk about the business of Vail Resorts. Vail Resorts runs the mountain for Whistler and the resorts. Actually, Jack, you mentioned that your advertising firm used to do ads with them, yeah?
Yeah, that was the account everyone wanted to be on, mate. 'Cause you'd be flying to one client meeting, then you'd be, I'll go on a Thursday afternoon. I'll be back Tuesday.
Oh, dude,
it's highly sought after.
So it's because people wanted because you knew if you met them, you're hitting the mountains, right?
The perks, mate. Yeah, exactly.
Somebody actually brought up, so the information I want to talk about Vail Resorts here is it's all comes from Bern Hobart. I've mentioned him before, but the diff.substack is my favorite newsletter. It's one of the smartest guys for business and tech, just super well read in general. And don't take my word for it. Patrick Carlson, frequently the CEO of Stripe, says, I love this article from Bern Hobart.
I respect.
So amazing Substack newsletter. It's like $200 a year, totally worth it. But he kind of breaks down Vail. And actually, Jack, the thing you mentioned is pretty genius because so Vail is a super acquisitive company. I love saying that. Like they grew from 2 resorts in 1996 to 37 today. And Bern posits that one of the reasons that this happens is because they have an incredibly good M&A team. And the M&A team is really good. It's because people that want to be working in resorts, right? Like you have like the top private equity analysts. Think about it. I mean, granted, you could be living like Jack right now in whatever apartment in New York, or you could be a Vail corporate analyst and you get to just fly around to all the different resorts. But I'll break down to you guys why this business is so interesting. So if you think about a ski mountain, right? If the original business was like I showed that Winter Wonderland, you're only going to be running 4 months of the year. So Vail Resorts in 1996 only owned 2 resorts, right? And then they've added 35 over the past few decades. So their whole mission has been like, okay, we're going to buy resorts, but over those last 2 decades, 2 things have been happening: climate change, which shortens the ski season, and the second thing is, if you want to buy a new mountain and make it a ski resort, what are the odds that the local government is going to let you do that, right? It's all about environmental checks, and they're not super happy about that. So the only way they can really expand the business is to make it a year-round business, and their existing business, they need to increase the throughput of it, right? So they do 3 really interesting things. So for example, Whistler, I showed you guys the mountain over winter, but what I'll show you guys here is during summer to keep the business year round, these guys went all in on mountain biking. So they basically turned it, check this out, they turned the ski lifts into mountain bike lifts. How crazy is that? So people sit in the back here and you put your bike in the front. And yeah, that makes it year round. And during the winter or even summer, the other thing you need to do is to increase the business is you need to sell people more stuff, right? So restaurants, attractions, stuff, all that good stuff that you'll get at any tourist destination. But the other thing they do, which is pretty hilarious, is if you go to the most recent 10K, the annual report, they mentioned the word ski lift improvement 11 times because all they're doing is improving their ski lifts so people get on and onto the mountain faster, right? So they're ripping you through. They're just improving the throughput. So Vail is a really, really interesting company. And the last thing I'll add about them as a business is because they own these 37 resorts now, they bundle them all together in the past. You pay $1,000 a year, and it's that sweet subscription revenue, right? You pay them $1,000 a year.
SaaS multiple on that.
Exactly, right? And you might not even go. It's like a gym pass, right? You might not even show up. It's like when people buy gym passes, the gyms don't even want you to show up. That's the reality, right? It's because it's going to ruin the experience for everybody else. So a certain percentage of people will never show up or never use the full value of the $1,000. But man, they sell this pass now, and it gives them the reason to keep adding people to the pass, like adding new mountains or adding new features because they can amortize the cost over everyone. So yeah, I wanted to talk about them because I was just there, and their stock is up 10 times over the past decade. It's a $12 billion company. So yeah, that's crazy. It on my side, man.
That's a good kind of question around like the best kind of subscription businesses that you don't even think about them being subscription. The one I'm thinking about, I don't know any of the numbers, but have you guys heard of Surf Air? I think it is. It's kind of like, it's if I'm getting the name right, they're basically like private flying, or what's it called? Private aircrafts or whatever. Private planes, sorry. Private planes, but you basically buy like a subscription to how many you're going to get to use.
Oh, so it's like NetJets, Berkshire.
Exactly, something like that. Yeah. But I've spoken to a couple people who've used it, and it's actually it's nowhere near the price you'd expect it to be to fly private, basically. And especially in like the West Coast, where people are going from the Bay Area, San Francisco to LA for like all the time. Like I actually know a guy who used to basically commute every day just because his family were in LA, and he would go there for work and then come back every day, which is kind of mental.
Wait, on the jet?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it was every single day of the week, but like every week he was doing it. So maybe like, but he would often go one way, stay there for the day, not even stay the night and come back. And I guess, I mean, even a normal flight is only an hour away, so it's not that crazy.
Sounds like the hedge fund managers that live in Connecticut and they chopper into the city.
That's true. The Blade. Have either of you done that, Jack? There's in New York. There's Blade that takes you to the Hamptons. You ever done that before?
No, I haven't been. We did one helicopter ride Celia bought for my birthday, and it was just like, I'm never getting on a helicopter ever again.
Wait, what birthday was this, and where was it?
In New York. Must have been like late 20s something. And you know, there's that pad downtown Manhattan, Bilal.
Yeah. I think it's probably where Blade goes from there as well, I think. And
there was like 6 people in the helicopter and like 2 other couples, I think. And there was this one woman who was so shit scared of being in a helicopter, it just destroyed the entire experience for everyone else.
Was she just like hyperventilating? And like, what was she doing?
Just like cowered in the corner. Like obviously whoever she was with had like said, oh yeah, it'll be fine, you'll love it. And she didn't love it, obviously. So it was just the whole, and they're not, I don't know whether these things like put a lot of miles in and they're a bit rickety or something, but they're not the most like confidence inspiring vehicles either. And you're just above the Hudson River. Like, yeah, if anything goes wrong up here, we're in big trouble.
You know what it is with these small aircrafts is, so I took basically a boat plane from Vancouver to Vancouver Island, which is just off the coast.
Yeah.
The thing with these small aircrafts that you're describing, you feel everything, right?
Yeah.
You feel every single movement and tilt, and you're like, oh, what is happening?
I mean, I think the rate, like, I don't know if this is just disproportionately covered when accidents happen in helicopters, but it feels like in the last few years, and it's always obviously people of means that are pretty much using helicopters for transport, but there's been, number of massive headlines of people tragic.
Kobe Bryant, obviously.
The Leicester, the manager, the owner of Leicester Football Club.
Oh, yeah, of course. The Thai guy.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Well, we talked about it a couple episodes ago with Jeff Bezos being the P-hound. He almost died in a helicopter accident in 2003, and his now girlfriend is a freaking helicopter instructor. This guy was so hungry for the pee that he just got right back into the helicopter. Bro, you almost died 15 years ago.
I love how Trung has got his cursing counter that someone's updating in the comments right now.
I'm just going to say, yo, listen, if my parents are listening, they're not going to know what P-hound means. Like, Dad, don't Google what P-hound means, man. Like, you're not going to want to see the result.
Incognito window, Dr. Trung. Dr. Phan.
If you Google P-hound window, your mom's going to be upset, so don't do it, bro.
Oh, boy. All right, this is one I'm not sending my parents, that sounds like. But anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, dude, I actually had 2 questions for you guys quickly. Give me some of your favorite vacations. I love Whistler because it's 90 minutes from Vancouver. It's not my favorite vacation ever. My favorite vacation is probably I did Italy with my kid and wife, but probably my favorite vacation without my kid was in Morocco. I did a week in Morocco. Marrakesh, son.
They're hustling there, bro.
All the rich footballers go to Marrakesh, man. Ronaldo's got to
cool,
up
right?
there. Yeah, dude, man. It's like an hour flight from Spain. People didn't realize. I didn't realize till I was there. Like Morocco is basically Europe, man. It's like,
isn't it crazy? Because when you move to the States, I know Trung, you lived there as well in Boston and stuff, right? Like you get so used to being like, oh, it's a 6-hour flight to LA from New York. From a 6-hour flight from London is Africa. Like you're literally in another continent.
Right.
Yeah, you're in North Africa.
Exactly,
or like
you can drive to Morocco from Spain, right? Like, I mean, you got to get on a ferry and I'll take you across. I'll be honest. Let me tell you about my Morocco trip. I'll be honest. I've never been to Africa or the Middle East before that trip to Morocco. And Morocco's not even really Africa, right? It's all the way in the northeast. It's like the top corner. It's not like sub-Saharan Africa.
Controversial, mate. Controversial.
Yeah. No, it's true, right? Well, it's on the continent of Africa, but it's way up in the northeast, right? Yeah. And I'll be honest, is like there have been Islamic terrorist attacks in Morocco. There's a very big one in Marrakesh, actually, in the square. But obviously Morocco prizes themselves as a tourist destination, so it's a kingdom. and they really revved up the security, right? Like you land in Morocco and there are people strapped everywhere. Have you guys been to Morocco?
Nah.
No.
It's fantastic, man.
I've been to North Africa, but not. I've been to
where in North
like
Africa?
Egypt, Tunisia.
Yeah, I was about to. Oh, you're basically right next door, man.
Yeah. So similar, but I wanted to go to Morocco. It looks really cool. But yeah, Jack, what about you, mate? Anything coming to mind?
Favorite holiday destinations
or whatever. Cornwall. I found this out last night because.
Yeah. No, Celia and I went to Italy. I've been through Italy and skied in like the Italian mountains when I was a kid, but not Italy proper. You know, another controversial comment maybe, like, but Rome, Florence, we went in December of last year. That was ace.
How freaking amazing is that place, man?
Unbelievably inspiring.
They just got it right there. Everything in Italy, they lived a good life, man.
Dude,
food's amazing.
I could live in Florence, I think. I think it's ace.
Florence. 100%. What's funny is that Italians don't like Rome, right? Nobody in Italy wants to live in Rome. It's because it's actually the city services are pretty bad.
Is it like the Times Square of Italy?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a strong statement as well.
We're gonna have to bleep out this entire section, right?
That's all right, man. Sorry, Jack. I didn't mean to interrupt you, mate. But yeah,
Italy's great. There's places in the States that I love. One of my favorite places in the world is Carmel by the sea in just south of San Francisco, I think. That's a great place. Tulum, nice little.
Oh, Tulum up in Mexico.
Nice little beach down there. Yeah, not that well traveled. Embarrassingly, haven't seen as much of Europe as I should have, considering I lived.
That's the thing, when you leave, you realize how close you were to all this stuff. And
I know.
I almost saved a bunch of those places to go back to as well.
Well,
I've done like probably 35 states in America and then maybe 5 countries in Europe.
That's good coverage.
So it's a pretty
you got to take your little boy out there, man. Just drive. Well, we drove once with my parents from London to Switzerland, and you just go through all these countries. It's quite a nice way to do it. I'll quickly answer as well, Trunk. I'll say 2 real quick because one was like a solo trip. It was like the first time I went on my own. It was kind of to your part of the world, but not Canada, like Vietnam. I mean, so I did a trip I did a trip for like a month, and I went to Tokyo, and then went to Thailand, and went all through all the islands and stuff like that. And that was just like the first time I went completely on my own, and it was just like really, obviously fun. And then the one I did recently with the missus, that was great because it was like a 2-3 month trip in Argentina. Went down to Patagonia, Buenos Aires. We kind of like lived there, if you want to call it that, for a couple months.
Must have been some tomahawk steaks there, yeah?
Oh my, every day. Every day. I mean,
they know what they're doing.
Oh, it's crazy, yeah.
You actually know what I should do for another fun fact fan in a future episode? We're going to keep all this. We're going to teach our listeners is about 100 years ago, no, maybe 110 years ago, I think Argentina had the same GDP, was the top 5 or 10 GDP in the world. And then now they just are no longer top 5 to 10. And the story of how that happened is fascinating.
Man, even the modern version, like from 2001, totally. that is a crazy story.
1900, if you're saying what is going to be the country of the 20th century, a lot of people are like, oh, it might be Argentina. And the reason why it never happened is just absolutely
that would be a great segment, man.
I'm looking forward to that.
The last thing I'll add on this tourism stuff, because I know people want to hear about the edge of the internet, is dude, I was in Switzerland once, and listen, man, when I traveled pre my wife, like I'm a dusty dude, right? And and
dusty dude.
I had never been to I'd never been to McDonald's I was in Zurich. Obviously, McDonald's in Zurich is legendary for being the most expensive McDonald's ever. I roll up in the McDonald's. My shoes, I'm wearing shoes that have holes in the back of them. And I go inside with my buddies, and it's like $30 for a Big Mac meal. I can't remember what it was. This is obscene, right? The conversion was Canadian. And I go there, and a homeless guy walks in, and he starts tapping people on the shoulders like, hey, can you buy me a meal? And as you can imagine, Swiss homeless people are actually pretty well put together. And the guy taps me. I swear to God, he taps me, asks to buy something from the menu, and then he looks at my shoes and he just goes, it's okay, man. It looks like you need this more.
He was going to buy you a meal. Yeah.
Like Oh, shit. Okay, yo,
Dude,
I got one more.
I never heard you call yourself Dusty before. That's hilarious.
Well,
I love that
got
phrase.
one last one from my
Do it,
European
man.
travel stories. I was in Stockholm. There aren't a lot of Asian folk in Stockholm.
Yeah.
And I rolled in there and I got gassed, right? Like I was drinking like the entire day and we hit the clubs. Then after hours, everybody goes to the chicken spots, you know, the after hour eats. And so these Swiss, the Swedish folk, I was in Finland, I was in Helsinki. And there's like the Helsinki folk haven't seen a lot of Asians in their life. So I'm in line waiting for chicken and these Finnish guys think they can just bust in front of me. I'm like, no, that's not happening. I start chirping in the back. And then this guy literally just looks at me. He goes, "You are the most arrogant Asian I've ever met in my life."
Oh my God.
No, it's like, bro, you probably met on the one hand, like less than 5 Asians, right? So this guy just did not believe that there could be such a mouthy Asian telling him that he wants his chicken first.
That's hilarious. I had the similar thing in Iceland, man, where I had an amazing time, but they don't meet many people.
Exactly, right?
I mean, they're like Iceland,
Iceland is like the most homogenous country in the world, right?
And they're all huge. Anyway, no, good little travel chat, but let's get on to the meat of the conversation. So what we're going to chat about today, we talked about the Vail resorts already. We're going to break down the infrastructure bill, which sounds like a boring title, but there's actually a lot of really interesting stuff in that's related to crypto and protecting the little guy and all this sort of stuff. So we're going to talk about that. The edge of the internet stuff where Jack actually ran an NFT auction for this, what was going on, and something called Party Bid we're going to talk about, and Axie Infinity, and also a thread from Chris Dixon on Web3. But before we do that, I do want to big up one of the NIA fam called Capsun100, who wrote the most incredible review on Apple. He said, if you bought some Bored Apes in episode 3, you could have been on a yacht by episode 16. And that we shared that in the Telegram. That is a legendary all-star comment. So,
well, hold on. Let's ask Jack, the not investment advice connoisseur on NFTs.
There we go.
If you had bought a Bored Ape that's 3 months ago, average, what are you talking here?
Average is hard, but minimum, if you bought, I can't remember exact date we recorded episode 3, but you're probably up 50x maybe.
That's mad. Absolutely. We will caveat absolutely not.
Absolutely not investment advice. And there's obviously been, the market has responded thusly. So you'll be able to find 10,000 imitation projects at this point. And, hopefully there's some Lindy effect because it kind of cemented itself as the second, or at least the first of the new wave after the classic CryptoPunk avatar project.
What was the cheapest one? What was the floor in around 3 months ago when you were buying? Or what did you buy your?
So three. They minted them at 0.08, which just under 0.1 Ethereum, which is $180.
A few $100, right? Yeah,
dude, I'm. Oh my god, dude!
I know this is. Look, I've said this before. God. I don't normally get FOMO, but this is the one I actually do feel. And every time we talked about it, I was like, I can buy now. I did a Trung. I was like, the way Trung felt about Bitcoin since 2013, I was like, oh, it keeps going. I can't get myself to do it. And then now, like, one just got sold for $1.2 million. Do you see that? That was the
Jack posted that in the Telegram group. Definitely jump in the Telegram.
And this is in the time we've done this podcast in a few months. So it's
Jack
pretty crazy.
Is feeding us Bored Ape information all day in our Twitter DMs. It's all day. It's just links to Bored Apes. Hey man, you should buy this one. Hey, you should buy. No, he never actually tells us to buy it. Even within our 3-person group, Jack uses non-investment advice frequently.
Yeah, doesn't want to be on the hook for that one. But anyway, go on, Jack.
I was just going to say, yes, there's definitely other projects as well that I haven't been able to act upon or even get my head around because the volume of stuff in this space based on the success of that. And obviously there's like the huge amount of capital sloshing around now. It's just madness out there. So definitely not investment advice.
Well, I mean, I think before we go into the edge of internet stuff, I think we have to bring up last week, we talked about Tom Sachs rockets. And Trung Phan, one of the co-hosts of Non-Investment Advice, made a prediction that Jack Butcher who invested roughly 10,000 into making a Chanel branded rocket NFT, it would be worth 200,000. What is it worth today?
So last time we checked, I think it was around 70,000. If you did the conversion, we got a few months.
Dude, I said within 3 to 5 years. This is gonna happen within 3 to 5 weeks.
We'll see. Yeah. This that stuff is mental, man. Interesting. It's getting interesting.
Gary V. I saw a posting about it as well. We shared that in the Telegram. He's been. He said it was his favorite one after. I think it's his favorite one after his own one, I guess.
Yeah, I think the mechanics of it. I think it might be like the dam busting moment for like people with real resources coming in and doing interesting stuff in the world of NFTs. Like, you know, an artist with a track record that has like high concept and a team and like really invests in making something special. So I think we're going to see more of that for sure.
Wait, so Jack, you mentioned something in our Twitter DMs, and I don't want to keep holding up this next segment, but the reason why I want to bring this up is because somebody this morning, Justin, I don't see his last name here. Awesome. He shouted out non-investment advice. I think he does financial advising, but he wrote up a blog post, shouted us out, which is great. You know, we always enjoy the plug, but he brought up, his blog post brought up a great point. Is like, if you're between 50 and 25 and you're listening to us, I know I'm assuming we have some of those listeners. I know some are in Budapest, Hungary, listening. So listen very carefully. I know we joke a lot about here. We talk a lot about Jack's crazy YOLO NFTs, but at the end of the day, what allows that to happen is that 90% of our, well, not necessarily for Jack, but I think the way people should look at it is like, if you have a barbell approach to investing, which is 90% in relatively safe assets, like call it FANG or some of these indices, or, Google's not going anywhere, right? If you put 90% of your assets into Google, it's not the end of the world. Bilal might say something different because he sold 90% of his holding in Google when it was worth like $2. But what we're trying to say is if you have relatively safe assets, you can do a barbell approach, which is one side of the barbell is fairly safe. 10% is absolutely insane.
Shit show. NIA advice.
There's barbell within the barbell, within that other side of the barbell. So it's like you could bet on the protocol. You're betting on the idea that people are gonna make markets for pictures of monkeys. You could just buy Ethereum. You don't have to gamble on a camel project or the monkey project or whatever. It's like, oh, this protocol is making it possible for these people to basically make markets out of thin air. That's cool. Maybe this is not the 100-year. This is like the pets.com of that new protocol potentially, but there are layers at which you can place your bets that don't require
barbells inside the barbell.
Wait, Jack, when you say the protocol here, you're talking about Ethereum? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Because all this is being built. A lot of it's been built on Ethereum.
Well, the other part I'd ask Jack, you mentioned is you get to learn if you allocate 10% in this absolute YOLO kind of barbell crazy NFT stuff, you're learning about the future of the internet. So it's like a price of admission to learn about the future.
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of comfortable with the theory of it and like the mechanics of it, but until you like press the button and you're in it, it's a very different feeling. And I think it's also because it's so small, it's such a subculture now that you are almost learning the culture is as important as learning the technical side of it. So having skin in the game, I think that's another way to get exposure to the way people are thinking about this stuff and talking about it, not just, staring at a spreadsheet or whatever else. Because all of these things are moving from this thing that you're just an abstraction you're like betting on because your financial advisor says it's a good idea, to these community owned things and like people collaborating to create value. So, it might not be your thing. So, not everybody should get into it, but if it intrigues you, you could spend a couple $100 and like get a sense of what it's all about. Join the Discords, all of that kind of stuff.
I think that's the best part, mate, that we just said about like joining Discords, seeing what people are talking about. People are sharing, they're sharing all the projects they're working on. Like, I think that's the best part of it, because that's worth the few $100s. You know, that's not, you know, you don't have to risk too much to be learning.
Yeah,
that.
and you don't need to spend anything to get into the Discords. That's
You
the
can go
crazy
for free,
thing.
right?
Like, they're all open invite, which is amazing. That, like, you know, 10 or 15 years ago on the internet, you wouldn't want to open invite to anything because people just crash into it, and you know what it would devolve into, right? It's just be absolute carnage. But for whatever reason, maybe this because there's an economic layer to it, people don't like act the way they would have 15 years ago. I was going to say something else as you were talking, Bilal. You gave me an idea. Yeah, the idea of community management in all these spaces, like all this stuff fracturing into these smaller communities that are focused on one project at a time. I think like a Discord community manager is a 6-figure job by the end of this year. If you're
absolutely.
good at that.
That's a great point.
No,
Yeah,
there's a few actually. Nat Eliason, I don't know, a couple of months ago posted something where like meme generating and community management were like the key roles. But like, I think one of you guys might have sent it to me is like, if you go down the job list of every crypto company, they all have one now. So you're chief community officer, right?
Yeah, and coming from corporate, like community kind of has this tired, almost cliche meaning to it. It's like replying to, I think of community manager, the way it's been instilled in me is like, you work for Delta and you're like replying to tweets where people are complaining about missing their flight or their food's cold or something. But it's way more now. Like you're literally building these little worlds and like helping grow the value of a product by connecting the people that are interested in it. And seems to be happening. Discord and Twitter is like the social stack for making that happen. So I think if you learn those two things, regardless of whether you have exposure to NFTs or not, those skills of bringing people together and organizing them around a cause on the internet, it's bulletproof skill building.
And also,
oh my God.
And then like even yesterday, I was trying to put some money into Sushi Swap, which is like, you know, sushi.com, right? Which is basically Uniswap's fork, right? And I was just messing around with it because I've played around with it before. And you go to it. I mean, first of all, what an incredible domain name, right? Like sushi.com, they own this. And again, not investment advice, but there's no better way to understand why you laughing.
Trans reaction.
No, it's just like you so earnestly said, yeah, so yesterday I was putting some money into Sushi Swap.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous. It just sounds like trying to explain this to anyone.
I know, you're ridiculous. So earnest. Like it's just like you're just dead serious.
No, honestly, and the reason I bring up, because you go to each page and you say, okay, what's this? One of them is lending. And then it kind of explain it. And then then you have to connect your MetaMask. And I was actually having issues with it. It wasn't allowing me to connect. But it's just like that feeling of clicking the button, pressing your fingerprint on the to sign it or whatever, or typing in your password. And then you get it. You're like, oh, I've got money in here and I've connected to this thing called sushi.com. And now I'm lending it to someone else. It's sitting in this contract. So anyway, I was just trying to play around with all the different parts of it. And there's no, when you then go to explain that, or in 5 years time, when, you know, maybe banks are going to be around, right, for some time, but there might be a bigger segment of people using these services for peer-to-peer lending.
Did you
and
buy
all the other. I've had that for ages. Yeah, I've had that from before. Not doing the best, to be honest. But anyway, because I actually think when I started looking into it, I was like, I don't know if buying this even has much value. You know, I needed to actually learn more about it, because a lot of this is to do with the supply and what, you know, the value of that is. So anyway, that's a whole different topic. But I was just trying to figure out, like, yeah, I mean, just seeing that, it really explains it, because you can hear us talk about it, but until you actually go and do it yourself, that's the way you learn. And whether that means you're, you know, putting $5 in or 5 million, it doesn't matter. It's about like understanding what's being built. So anyway, I think that's a good segue anyway into what we were going to chat about, because this is all related. So the infrastructure bill was a big topic over the last week. I met my friend, who we call him $400 fiat guy, within our friend group. He's probably listening to this as well, because he just every month he puts all his money into investing stuff. And he was like, look, man, I just made 3 calls today to the senators or whatever it was. So I don't know that much about this, but we did talk about it in the group. So do either of you want to try to give a summary of what was going on?
Jack
from
should do
how
it. Since he,
I can give it my best shot, and my my inability to explain this will kind of come full circle as to why I undertook the project that I undertook to try and solve the problem that I don't understand the issue here. So, infrastructure bill, if you're not in the States or you don't pay attention to this stuff, is like what, $3 trillion, $4 trillion of government spending across like all sorts of stuff. Like, you name it, it's in there somewhere. There's a great Twitter thread that somebody put together that pulled out all of the different projects that have been like lumped into this bill.
I just pulled it up. Do you want me to go through some of the things?
Just pull a few examples of things.
Okay, so let me before Jack opines more on his specific project. The infrastructure bill is basically, it's bipartisan because everybody loves it, right? It's spending. If you are a politician, that means money is being directed some way, likely towards your district. Because if you're a congressman or a congresswoman, like your whole job is you're trying to get money towards you, right? So these massive infrastructure bills, you're just trying to figure out ways to get money to you in some capacity. And the way that these infrastructure bills work is that everybody kind of argues over it and they try to get money for different aspects of it. So a lot of things that people will get those, like there's a lot of criticism over this bill because some of the things are pretty frivolous, right? It's like 50 million towards like education about trees. Something like that line might happen. Like, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but something along those lines will happen. But then you have something, a big ticket item like 700 billion or 500 billion plus goes towards building an EV charger station across America, right? So that's something that totally makes sense. And then the classics are always like fixing bridges, fixing roads and stuff like that. But if you actually dig into the infrastructure bill, the word is pork. There's just a lot of, the negative term is just pork. It's just things that are stuffed in there that have no real value. And but Congress, women and men, congressmen, congresswomen are happy to take those because it's money for their district, right? So that's just like the broad line of the infrastructure bill. Just to summarize, is like it's a huge pot of money. It gets bipartisan support because no matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you're a politician, you want that money coming towards you, right? And then the other part of it is that you'll have these big name projects like building a charger network across all America that everybody's like, oh, that's great, right? Like you can call it like the charger network infrastructure bill. But in reality, that's going to be 20, 30% of it. And you're going to have 70% of this 3.5 trillion going to like, frankly, in a lot of people's eyes, like some frivolous things. So that was kind of the outlines of it. And within that.
And Trung, it's huge, right? Like it's just to quantify.
Massive.
This is, there's no way all these people have read the whole thing. Obviously, it's massive.
It's massive, right?
1,500 or
Yeah, you
2,000
need
pages long.
Yeah, you need a whole team.
insane.
You need teams and teams of people summarizing.
Exactly. So that's why you sneak in and you find these like kind of crazy things, but it's all trade-offs, right? It's politicians trading off with each other. It's like, hey, listen, if I vote for this, which means that Wisconsin will end up getting a lot of money because we have X amount of land that's used for this resource, and I'll trade off for you in the future, whatever, right? But stuck inside that bill is something around crypto taxations, because 3.5 trillion or whatever the final numbers, it has to be paid for. And one way that people are like, hey, where can we find a massive pot of money? And it's in crypto, right? It's such a massive growing segment of the financial markets. And this is where I'll pass it off to Jack, but this is where this part of the infrastructure bill caused controversy, specifically within the crypto community, because of the language of how they're going to tax and apparently regulate crypto.
Yeah, that's good. So the initial language around crypto that I saw the most pushback on is this idea of the definition of a broker. So if you're a broker in the financial system, I think that means you have to issue 1099s to anywhere money flows from you to somewhere else. And the language that was in the initial bill defined like some of the touch points in the crypto ecosystem that could not comply with, like technically could never comply with that and are not a broker by any different definition of the word. So like people are developing wallets and like parts of the crypto ecosystem that aren't these like fiat to crypto on-ramps or off-ramps are not brokers by the definition of broker.
Jack, in that case, what people might have heard of, like Coinbase, Gemini, these are places we all go, we press our credit card, connect our bank, buy $50 of crypto. That makes sense. They've already got they've already got that infrastructure set up. At the end of the year, you get like a summary. But you're saying a developer who's someone who's making a tool, like the little guy a lot of the time. It's not big tech or whatever, or even Coinbase. And then another phrase I've heard is like validators, right? So like I think
a node,
a node on the network. So yeah, I just wanted to add that as well. But
yeah, it's very good. That clears it up. Like a good metaphor I heard is like when the web was being developed, it's like, okay, if you're going to write JavaScript, then you have to, file this form with the government every time you ship a new piece of code.
Right.
So it's like, I don't think what they're doing is necessarily like that definition, the way it's defined would not raise more tax revenue. It would just like destroy the speed at which it could move and get built, which long term will reduce tax revenue, right? If you can't build the tools that increase the size of the ecosystem, and like in the same way that the internet got more usable through a bunch of people getting into it, developing it, supporting it in all these different small ways, then the criticism was you're just going to completely basically kneecap the development of the crypto ecosystem. And there was a amendment offered. There was a couple of amendments. I'm going to get the specific details wrong. Toomey, Loomis, and another senator, I believe, had an amendment that was like cleared up the language to the point where the people I respect in the space were like, this is fair. Like, this makes sense. Let's do it. It wouldn't have impacted, this is not crypto people lobbying to avoid tax. It's lobbying to avoid restrictions that would prevent the speed of innovation in the system. So that amendment was what got all of this groundswell of support on Twitter. So I saw it from this organization called Fight for the Future. They did a lot of work around net neutrality, which is maybe where your friend Bilal got it's like they make it really easy to call your senator. You go on and you say, hey, here's my zip code and here's my name. And then if they call on my phone number or my zip code, they call your phone, they connect you with a senator, they give you a script to read to say, please vote for this. I think this is fair. Amazing organization, Fight for the Future. Donate to them if you can. And anyway, so it goes through this ridiculous process in the Senate. And I think Ted Cruz, a lot of people disagree with Ted Cruz, but a lot of people switch their at least momentary position on Ted Cruz for his speech, where he said, like, we should not be writing regulation around something that we literally cannot explain. If I asked, I couldn't find 5 people in this room that could give me 2 sentences that even remotely describe what a cryptocurrency is. And for that reason, I don't think we should be writing laws to stifle the innovation of it, especially when our competitors are embracing it and throwing capital at innovating it, being the hub of it. Exactly. So, and I think that is like a huge, this is not going to be the first issue. It comes down to this. And even the way in which governing is done, another great analogy I saw was like, imagine you're developing a piece of software and you try and push through 3,000 code changes at the same time. That's essentially what bills of this size are doing. It's like if the US is a product, you're like, okay, we've got all these ideas. We haven't tested any of this code in production. We're just going to frickin' press push, versus like every amendment is like, you guys know GitHub. It's like you commit a single change, you see if it works, everyone votes on it. And if it works, then we keep it in. So I think countries and governance systems that push towards like more iterative and nuanced and like well considered ultimately changes will end up winning over the long term. Anyway, Coin Center, this is a really crazy statistics. There's an organization called Coin Center. You've probably seen Niraj on Twitter. He's like 150,000 followers.
Right?
He's been writing a lot about this
galore, and he gets a lot of reach.
He's a legend.
He's like hilarious dude, and brings a lot of focus on these issues. And I was like, okay, what can I do? I can, I'm not an American citizen, so I have very limited power in my, political movements, but I have, this platform built Visualize Value. So what can I do? So I was like, I'll try and raise some money for Coin Center. They're a, not-for-profit group in DC that their sole aim is to basically fix the problem that we're talking about, like educate people in government around what crypto is, how to make it, how to foster innovation and still comply with all of the laws of the land, things of that nature. So great organization. Let's raise some money for that. So I made a piece of art.
He reached out to you?
No, I just did it by myself. So
but you did not communicate with him at all?
Not until after I launched it. So I was like, I went on a coin center. You can donate in Ethereum. I'm just going to make a piece of art. Whatever we raise, I'll chuck the Ethereum at that address, and put that up. Got a few people bidding on it, and
let's see this thing.
Yeah, I'll do a little share. Let's have a look.
Actually, Jack, while you're pulling it up, I'm just going to add one comment really quickly because you talked about Ted Cruz. I'm just stalling here, but I was going to make this point after anyway. So Ted Cruz was obviously one vocal person, but of course there were so many people talking about this. Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, which there's a great thread or a couple threads we can go through in a second. Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, like lots and lots of people were talking about this. And one of the nuances was around proof of work versus proof of stake, which we've talked about on the show a little bit before. And the 10-second version of this was one of them was included and one of them wasn't. I think proof of stake was being treated differently, and it was going to essentially make proof of stake less, it was not going to be a positive thing for proof of stake, which given all of the other priorities around environmental factors, I mean, it's the infrastructure bill, right? Proof of stake is 100 times more energy efficient, apparently. And so there was a big conversation. I think Balaji even wrote something along the lines of, this is the first kind of attack against that. And there will be another one later around proof of work being energy intensive. And the last thing I'll say is episode 0 of this show, we did the Balaji discussion. And he said in another podcast that there's 100% chance of a regulatory attack on cryptocurrencies from the US government. And I think, I don't know if you want to call this completely a regulatory attack, but this was obviously kind of in that mode. So that was all I wanted to add. Now you've got it on
one
screen.
One thing actually, Bilal, I'll add is Brian Armstrong said that was like picking, he said the way that proof of stake and proof of work was being kind of randomly chosen which one should continue was like if 15 years ago, senators were like, hey, listen, iOS is no longer allowed. We're just going to allow Android.
Exactly. And it's like picking winners and losers is the other way I heard it described.
And writing language that, like you say, doesn't allow for the development of new technologies as well. It's like, what if you fall outside of these two definitions, then like you're not complying with US law, which is, why would you take that risk if you could go and develop something somewhere else that's way less hostile to building technology?
But also, so this is the artwork, right? This is awesome,
This is a piece, and it's basically, I think we've talked about this before, the thesis that whichever way this bill is voted upon, like what would be a significant thing to look back at in 10, 15, 20 years, crypto succeeds in the US. The crypto community came together, 40,000 people made phone calls to their senators and directed this bill one way or the other. So, simple piece of artwork, obviously in the visualized value vein. And the interesting piece of this is there's this, this will take us basically into the next part of the conversation. There's this DAO called Party DAO, which is like this, there was this decentralized...
For people that don't know, go on, sorry, decentralized autonomous organization.
It stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It was a crowd fund through Mirror, so basically crypto Kickstarter. People had an idea like, how do we democratize or lower the barrier to entry to people who want to own these pieces of digital art but might not be able to bid 10, 15, 20, 30 Ethereum. They want exposure to these historic pieces of art and culture as they're being made. But if you didn't buy Ethereum in 2017 or 2016, then the likelihood that you can compete with big collectors is slim to none. So they developed this product called Party Bid, which is interesting for a bunch of reasons. It's down right now. That's a shame. But what it aims to do is let people pool funds to bid on NFT auctions. So instead of finding two people to buy this thing, this is a good example. You can pull together, here's on screen if you're not watching the video. There was an auction a week ago for a crypto punk, and they managed to pull 478 people together, and they raised 1,200 Ethereum.
Unbelievable.
$3.6 million, won this auction. And I use the same technology at a much smaller scale to raise money to bid against single collectors on that piece of artwork that we did. And if you're watching as well, this is like a really interesting new UI. It's like this collaborative thing. There's another cursor on the screen with me. It takes that like co-working Figma style.
Yeah, I was thinking it looks like
UI.
Figma to me. Yeah, the way you're describing that.
Yeah,
So
I just want to clarify this. So this this organization that you're referring to, the one that ended up buying your piece of artwork, is that correct?
Yes. So a pool, like it was called Party Pack. So the idea that we pulled full funds together as like advocates for the crypto community, bid on this piece, and then the all of the
proceeds went to Coin Center.
Went to Coin Center.
How many people were in Party Pack?
I think it's about 27.
Okay. So just to summarize, Jack Butcher put up an art piece, a digital art piece, to raise money for Coin Center. Coin Center was helping the fight against this language in the infrastructure bill, which would have kneecapped the crypto industry. Now, the interesting thing about who won the bid for Jack's piece is that they're using kind of this mechanism like that. Basically, just 450 people basically just bought a CryptoPunk, which was $3 million. And there's a lot to pull on that thread. Now, all those people that helped purchase that CryptoPunk, they get to put that in the profile picture, right? It's like that's the smart part. We don't need to talk about that, but there's this whole mechanism happening. Our old friend Packy wrote about it, actually, how NFTs are kind of becoming a social network. But this kind of same setup was used to purchase your piece of art.
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing, which I thought was badass from this this Twitter account, Mellow Wolf, who said, the Coin Center annual budget is about 1.3 million USD. This currently equals about 8 of the cheapest CryptoPunks available. We can do better, crypto community. Support what we all need with the exact same fervor. So this was like, this whole thing was a big realization for me. And, everyone's having fun, and like, these markets are like just madness, and like it draws a lot of people in. And the activism side of it, I think, Bilal, we could probably wax on this for a while, so you have way more experience there. Like, how do you get people as excited about, you don't have to even deviate too far from what you're doing, but how can these activities like go toward fueling defense of the technology that makes them possible? Because it's not like it's only a free market to the extent that it doesn't get big enough for a bunch of 70-year-old people to be like, what is this? Let's kill that shit. That. And put it into context like this with these transactions that you see like popping off, people buying cartoons at that level of like that much money is moving around. It's like, man, the imbalance seems absolutely astounding. And this is like that 1.3 million. How many people can that employ in DC? And the fight that they have on their hands is just bananas, enormous. And it's not always capital either. Like, I realize for myself, like, I have a role to play in this. There's plenty that I could be doing to even help communicate these things, whether it's directly like what Coin Center needs help communicating, or this story in general, where all this money sloshing around this ecosystem, and how much of it is actually going towards the preservation of the values and education of the people that can like enshrine this stuff and protect it long term. So big lesson there. I think hopefully a few more experiments along the way, and Fight for the Future, amazing organization that made the phone calls possible, and then Coin Center's like on the ground in DC with a very specific crypto focus. So those are the two organizations I think I'll be focused on figuring out how to help them. But what I think is really interesting about this in the context of art is the significance that you can give a piece of art based on what it achieved in real time. That's like what the internet allows us to do. So I think, just a lot of neurons firing around about how we can make this way more interesting. That was like a 15-minute idea, spun it up to raise some money, but a lot more to come on that front.
That's
well,
sick,
let's not
man.
bury the lead here.
Go on.
Jack was contacted by the failing CNN.com.
Here we go. The failing. Yeah, we forgot to mention that in the intro.
Yeah.
Someone update the counter.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to my blue check, Trung.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we don't have to talk about DJT, but the failing CNN, when Jack messaged me, he said, yo, CNN wants to talk. What do you think? I'm like, Jack, first of all, doesn't care. He's going to do it whether or not he wants to. But I'm just like, man, if it's a negative or it's a hit piece, it doesn't matter, man. All you got to do is come back and say failing CNN, and it's going to go to the moon. No, but they wrote a pretty nice piece, summed it up really nicely here about Jack and what was going on with Coin Center. But here we go. This is the money, people. Okay, first of all, Butcher, a Nashville-based artist. Artist, come on. So much more than an artist. But here we go. Whichever here, I'm quoting Jack here, probably to his dismay. Whichever way the bill goes, this piece represents a community coming together to defend a nascent technology against hastily written legislation that would prevent an unfathomable amount of financial innovation happening in the U.S. Oh my goodness, bro. Those are some...
Dropping
hold on a
some
second.
bars, son.
Hastily, bro. I got to say the unfathomable.
Great use of the word.
It is unfathomable, though. Like, I think it is. Like, that word does encapsulate what we're talking about here. It's like the exponential upside of embracing this technology being like in the same way that the .com boom was Silicon Valley, like a country friendly to building those companies, the biggest creators of wealth in the human history. And this will be the same thing.
Right.
Well, do you know what's cool as well, Jack, is that just symbolically what you did there with Party Bid and NFTs, like these are two ideas that are on the edge of the internet / like really cutting edge ideas that you guys use that to combat stifling of those ideas.
Right.
Like, and the
there's
fact
a huge
that
irony to it.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's a piece of artwork that symbolizes, this moment in time. And I just heard the way you described that there. It was quite cool to hear the way you were thinking about it. Similar to the first, the NFT that we talked about in episode 01, which was the 2 boxes, NFT and JPEG with the verified check. Like that was, again, seems super simple, but it was so simple that we all got it. And it was funny. It had the humor in it too. Because and that's exactly what, art is in many ways. It's like capturing a moment in time. And this was similar. It's like the phone, everyone's trying to make these calls. So it's quite cool to hear that.
I think even it's cool that you noticed the phone. Like that was one of the things I thought about. It's like, imagine if you own that and in 20 years, you look at the iPhone 12 is going to look like a 80s, like, one of those big bricks.
Yeah.
So it's going to have historical significance, hopefully. That's, man, I just think we have a massive opportunity to support the things we want to support because of the excitement in this space. It brings a whole new, and Bilal, we got to do a bit on this with you on another episode, maybe, of I think it brings a massive amount of potential to fundraising in general.
Well, when you said that earlier, I don't know if we just want to talk about some of it now, but I remember you said at one point, it's really hard to get people to care about causes. And I think, I can't remember if this was at the end of the year when you did a big charity thing or it was something else. But I mean, again, that could probably be a whole episode on its own because there's a lot to unpack there. But do you remember when you had that
I thought about it a lot. We gave away maybe 150 grand last year in various different ways. And I've played with so many different mechanics to get people to care about it. And it has to be a secondary thing for the most part. If you just come to the Twitter feed and be like, hey, send your money to this address, nobody's going to do it. But if you can be a part of this movement and you have ownership in this piece of art, again, the market is never wrong. I'm not complaining about the fact that it's difficult. I'm just saying it is difficult, and you have to be extremely clever, and in the same way that you would to position any product or decision, there's a lot of work that goes into making these things. And Charity Water's up there, Bilal, with maybe the best examples that ever, like the way they built a brand and tell stories and involve people is just incredible. So I think maybe we'll do a little evergreen philanthropy episode.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just
Wait,
one thing. Go on,
hold on, Bilal. Are you still involved with Charity Water?
No, not anymore. I mean, I speak to them and chat. I mean, I donate a small amount of money every month, but yeah, just because I work there, I guess, is what you meant.
Yeah, definitely.
But the one thing I'll say, just to add to what you said there, was, especially me coming from the business world, going to Charity Water, one of the things I just thought, okay, the whole charity world just needs to embrace this, the transactions, the way that business works. And, half of Charity Water came from that world too, right? Like, it wasn't just a traditional nonprofit. But there is a crazy difference in selling a product to get to X revenue versus asking someone to donate, where
Correct.
Primarily they're not getting anything out of it. And we had quite a philosophical thing here where we got offered all the time to like be able to give something away. Like some charities will do, come and hang out with Will Smith for a weekend and we'll auction that off. We did some stuff like that, but generally we always kind of philosophically said, like, we want people to understand the joy of giving and give for the sake of giving. And we need to show them, there's several reasons why they don't trust charities. And we need to just combat every single one of those, why they don't trust us.
And I hate to be the Bitcoin fixes this idiot, but it's like you imagine like the transparency of blockchain applied to some of these problems is pretty profound. And even if you don't go into the way the funds are distributed at the charity level, the status symbol of an NFT that I supported this cause, not that I changed my fucking picture frame on Facebook to have this like frame around it. I bought this thing and 98% of the capital I used to buy it went to this organization. And you could look at my address and see that thing is in my wallet. So it's going to bridge this idea of status, philanthropy, like markets, social
transparency,
media. It's going to be crazy, man. And I think it will be a very powerful system to put money where it needs to go.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do a whole, because there's a lot to break down there. I feel like today we would rush it, but just that's already a good discussion on it.
Evergreen.
Trung, anything else before we move on? I know we had a few things on Brian Armstrong's threads and stuff.
Hold up one of the threads that you linked.
Go for it, man.
So just to summarize where we're at is that infrastructure bill that has made it through the Senate, the language has been removed. The most damaging language. Some analysts now in the crypto industry think that if you actually look at what happened, it's still a positive in the sense that they're clearly thinking about these things now, which only mainstreams crypto even more, right? Granted, they could totally fuck the entire thing. Counter, fine. But they're at least thinking about it. So something that Brian brought up in a thread he put 2 days ago was after the language had been taken out and it looked like a pretty positive outcome. He basically was just saying, crypto just wants the opportunity to be on par with traditional finance. He's not asking for a leg up. He's not asking for special treatment. He's just saying, with the tax reporting requirements that are put in the original language, if you bought a coffee with Bitcoin, you basically had to file papers, right? And he's just all we're asking for is just put us on the level playing field with traditional finance, and basically just saying there's a lot more education that will go on. It ended up being apparently 80,000 people contacted senators, which is insane.
Incredible.
And it actually speaks to just the community of Bitcoin is actually kind of what makes it inevitable, right? I know we bring up Pomp at least once an episode, but he wrote a great article about how when all the laser eyes things started popping out in the profile pictures, he's just explaining the genius of it is that everybody gets it. Everybody that's young on the internet gets what was happening. And the Fed and the Treasury and the policymakers, They literally can't. They're in a lose-lose situation. If they respond to the laser eyes, they've legitimized it, right? Like, how can you imagine if Janet Yellen responded to the laser eyes? So you can't respond to the laser eyes. You can't make up your own like meme thing to do to your profile picture because you're supposed to be this hoity-toity. You know, we run the financial system. So if they respond to it, they legitimize it, and that's a lose. If they do nothing, they also lose because everybody else gets the joke. Everybody under 30 gets the joke. And everybody under 30, who are they going to want to roll with, right? They're going to want to roll with the internet native money. So it's just the community of crypto is just, this is such a great example.
The crypto community is, if you are ranking people who get internet culture, memes, spreading messages, having a laugh about everything. But also this part just showed like when people needed to organize and get something done, the people did that as well. Obviously there's negative parts to it like anything else as well, but it's a really interesting evolving world, man. Like just to see people that quickly got ready to be like, all right, I'm going to call my center. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spread the message.
Totally.
So I think there's going to be a time when, whether that's the next election or 10 years from now, where this is just a huge segment of people that disproportionately are going to have influence in a way because the amount of money that is transferred. Like a lot of people don't realize how much wealth has been generated with random people that you don't even know who they are. You just meet them in the street and they just look like normal people, but they bought Ethereum in 2016 and Bitcoin in 2012, and they bought Bored Ape Yacht Club when they watched episode 1. You know what I mean? So that is a group of people that will punch above their weight in a way, And
if you want to taste of whether or not that can happen, just remember, like Donald Trump is essentially a meme president. Like, legitimately, sure. Right?
Yeah,
he is an insurgent, complete outside. But this is not me speaking to whether or not I agree with his politics. How he got into office was the internet, right? It was the mechanisms of the internet that in large part got him into office. And just everything was a fucking joke, and like 4chan was boosting him. Everybody was kind of into this joke, and like there's a lot of reasons as to why he became president, but we can't dismiss the fact that the internet culture is a big part of it.
Yeah, and even before him, Obama as well. I'll say.
Yeah, everything is a meme. Way. Everything is a meme. Just some are shit.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's the quote of the episode so far.
So. No, the last thing I wanted to add to your point, Bilal, was you guys have brought this up in the past. Balaji says if Bitcoin hits like 300,000 or something, half the world's billionaires will be Bitcoin billionaires or something insane like that, right?
Great, Forbes list, all Bitcoin.
Yeah, absurd. It's absurd.
Basement dwellers.
That steak is hitting Jack now.
No, mate, yeah.
Steak and a few other things.
We walked back up as well. We did a 40.
Oh, you walked all the way to... No way, sorry. We were downtown and he walked all the way to Central Park. That's mental.
Had to do it.
Why don't we do this? Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up with this last thing, which is gold. Chris Dixon.
Let's do it.
Well, actually, can we just mention one thing as well? There's the Axie Infinity thing really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
This is like a one-liner, basically.
Want to show your tweet?
What was the tweet I put out? It was Axie Infinity, which we need to do a whole episode on this as well with someone who knows the ins and outs of this. Actually, Packy, who was on the show, Not Boring, that's his name of his newsletter. He actually did a great breakdown of this. But essentially, I don't know, Jack, or either of you have got a better way to describe this, but from the limited I know, it's basically like a Pokemon, like on the blockchain, or like it's basically a game that you can earn by playing. And long story short, it's been growing like absolute crazy. And they just hit a 1 billion in sales. I wrote revenue here, but essentially gross sales on the platform. And in a crazy amount of time, in Packy's piece, he predicted that would be like by the end of the year. And it's already happened. That's what someone responded to my tweet about. And 20% of that was in the last week when I tweeted this.
The
August
CEO
9th.
of the company, his name is Trung, by the way. He's Vietnamese.
Really? Oh, right.
That must be it.
So a big part
Magic
of
sauce.
Axie Infinity is because they're allowing basically people to quote unquote farm in these digital worlds and make money. A lot of Vietnamese and Filipino players. I think 60% of the players are from the Philippines, actually, which is why we need to really deep dive on this. You know what? I'm literally just going to regurgitate Packy's entire thing. I'll just read it and regurgitate it.
Yeah.
We don't want to waste it.
I've heard a few people message me in a few of these like crypto groups I'm in, and they've said that they know people who essentially hired people abroad to be playing these games, and they get a cut. And
scholarships or something they're called, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we need to do a full deep dive, but that's another world. But yeah, let's move on to the last part, which is Chris Dixon's thread. Trung, did you want to take it away with this one?
I'll talk through it. And Axie Infinity was actually great segue too, because I'm going to mention it very shortly. But Chris Dixon actually wanted to make a comparison between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. And then Web 2.0, we can consider that world like Facebook, Twitter, Google, Amazon, everything in the last 2 decades, right?
Social and mobile, right?
Social mobile, that type of world. And the big players are all the ones I mentioned. And the way Chris Dixon framed it is this. He actually used Amazon as this frame. He said that, so Jeff Bezos famously said that your margin is my opportunity. So before the internet, if you were a grocery store and you had pretty decent margins on, say, a banana, just because you were the only grocery store, or books, right? If you're a bookstore, you had good margins on your books because you were the only bookstore within 100 miles of a small town, and you could charge people more. And I get it, you're a small bookstore, you might have to just to pay. But for Bezos, he's like, that's an opportunity for me. And he went in, obviously started with books, but any other business line that had a little bit of margin, he's like, I'm going to figure a way to make my margin even smaller, and basically I'll compete you. So Chris Dixon says that the shift from Web 2 to Web 3, and Jack, would you say that Web 3 is very much kind of this kind of crypto creator economy? Like, how would you define Web 3?
Great question. I need to think about a more succinct version, but I think the idea of this like participatory through the idea of like economic infrastructure instead of social infrastructure. So like you can own things, you have a relationship to, like you have an ownership stake in something rather than you're a user, right? Owner versus user, maybe at a really high level, is how I would think about it.
Okay, no, that's perfect then. So as you shift into this kind of creator, crypto, owner over user economy, Chris Dixon said that the similar framework to think about is your margin is my opportunity turns into your take rate is my opportunity. So the way he frames it is this. He talks about the video game industry, and he says the video game industry does 120 billion a year. A large portion of that is in virtual goods sales, right? So if you're buying virtual goods in Fortnite, if you're buying it in an EA game, like what are some really popular, or like in Call of Duty, or any of these
Counter-Strike,
games
that stuff, right?
Yeah, World of Warcraft. If you are spending money on these platforms, those game makers are taking 100% of revenue, right? So their take rate is 100%. So if you're calling that the equivalent, if you're calling take rate the equivalent of margin, if a business had 100% margin, Jeff Bezos is going to figure out a way to make money from them, right? If you have 0.1% margin, Bezos is going to figure out how to make money. So basically, in Web 3, any platform that, this even applies to like, frankly, even like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, right? Like these guys are capturing most of the value of the creation that's happening on it. So that's their take rate, and it's very high. In Web 3, if you have a high take rate, you are susceptible. And this is where Axie Infinity comes in. I'll share the screenshot of his exact tweet. He goes, you guys see what I'm posting? Yeah. So Web 3, aka crypto games, reduced the take rate dramatically. For example, Axie Infinity has generated over 1 billion in gross sales, but most of that money has gone back to users. So I think he's a COO of Axie Infinity, Tejeo. He basically said that traditional games take 100% of the take rate on digital goods. He says Axie only takes 4.25%. But I mean, 4.25% of $1 billion is still a good business, right? Especially if all that happened in the last couple of weeks. So he's basically saying this is going to happen to like all in social. Here he goes. Social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok have take rates 100%. They don't share any revenue at all with creators. This is great for them, but bad for users. So take rates are going to be coming down. And we're seeing it now with a lot of the creator stuff that we've talked in the past couple of weeks, right? So I just found that thread was super interesting, and I love the framework of the Bezos framework. Genius.
Yeah, and Trung, one other thing, again, I don't know a more succinct definition that you guys talked about, but I think a big part of Web3, from what I read, is just decentralized nature of a lot of the new alternatives being created. And back to that example we discussed earlier around, just the peer-to-peer lending, right? Previously, there's a middleman that, I want to get a loan. I go to the bank and they use money from other people's money that's deposited. They charge me interest and they keep the majority of that, right? So now when you take that middleman out of the picture and it's essentially code or a small team with a bunch of leverage code, now that same 6% or whatever can be passed around more. And that's the equivalent of what you discussed there around the margin for Jeff Bezos and the take rate. Because on traditional platforms, there's a take rate. And now if there is more of that pie to go around, like as Jack mentioned, the ownership versus just being a participant, that I think is kind of where it comes from, right? Like that's why there's even a place, there's even a logic behind being able to pass that around a bit more. So yeah, I think the gaming example you gave there is also really interesting because they get a lot of this stuff natively because they've been building these worlds already for years.
Right.
And they've been selling virtual goods. They've had to figure out the problem of currency and change of currency exchange rates within their games already.
Because they're building an economy, essentially.
Exactly. So yeah, really interesting from Chris Dixon, man.
I'm sure Chris Dixon will have a very smart response to this. It's like they're almost like a different type of monopoly, in a weird way. Like OpenSea is another good example of a company that's making 2.5% on every transaction, where, I don't know, an eBay or an Etsy is probably charging you a lot more than that. But everybody's going to use the one that's doing the best, if that makes sense. So you still, like, the network effect created by the platform is also like a huge part of the value to the user. It just becomes like, what do we settle on as what are we happy to pay for that network effect? And like 4% is a freaking bargain.
Right.
2.5% is a freaking bargain. And like, I think YouTube, I don't know what that pays creators, but you might have a better idea than me.
I think it's 55%
of the ad revenue.
Of ad revenue. I think so, unless they changed it. Yeah. So
like to build a crypto alternative to YouTube to get that level of network effect, maybe I'm drastically underestimating like the speed at which it moves, but it feels like it'd be just an enormous undertaking. So like these things that are brand new, like selling art on an NFT marketplace, it's a brand new thing. Axie Infinity is a brand new paradigm for playing games. The crypto, like BitClout, is maybe a better comparison to Twitter. Like when does the scale tip? What do you have to give users to get them from a Twitter to a BitClout? Because the network effect on Twitter is 100x what it is on BitClout, and the behavior on BitClout is like going into a spice market or something. It's people just like buy my thing, sell that, buy my thing. It doesn't have the same.
Are you still dabbling?
I haven't been back on it for a while. I just got a little tired of the like I said.
I love your spice market
analogy. Yeah.
Talking to Morocco earlier.
Yeah. That must have been what planted it. Yeah.
Actually, man, listen. I feel if you haven't had it good, I think we got to call for Jack here, man. I've been there, brother.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Yeah, long day, mate. Long day.
You still got more to do
it, man. Trust me.
97 degrees in New York today, isn't it, Bilal?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Bro,
it probably feels like 105 or something.
I know I know the look, man. I've been there enough that I know the look. And we got to call this. But no, for real, I think that was really good. I think we covered a ton of ground there.
Yeah, really good. But listen, anything else before we wrap up, boys? I think that was solid. We talked about a lot of infrastructure stuff. Chris Dixon. Let's definitely try the Axie Infinity deep dive at some point, and the philanthropy one. We've already written out a bunch of stuff we wanted to chat about. We should all play
Axie Infinity for an hour or something.
That's true. Live stream Twitch. I wonder who's the Axie
That's a good
Infinity
shout.
Twitch streamer. I wonder who's
That's a
doing
good
that.
show. We should do a live, not investment advice. We'll talk about it while we're playing it if we can figure out how to freaking log into it.
Yeah, I know. All right, everyone.
There's
thanks.
a bit of a hurdle, right? There's a bit of a hurdle.
Yeah, it's not just like a. It's not
Which is
Farmville.
again incredible that it's doing what it's done with the friction that exists. All of this
Yeah,
stuff
right.
is mind blowing. OpenSea, like how the hell are they doing that kind of volume when it's like you need to be pretty proficient to like move assets around, set up your wallet, store your stuff. Right.
Even just understanding the jargon, man. Like I was on OpenSea because I had a few NFTs, and I'm like, what? How do I have to list this? Is it automatically listed? I didn't really even know. It's not like super intuitive straight out the box.
Bro, just go buy some more Sushi Swap, man. Just go buy some more Sushi Swap.
We have to
I'm
do
down.
Roblox
Probably.
as well. I don't know how much you boys know about Roblox, but apparently that's mad. Does yours?
Maybe we get
Oh,
Mario on.
yeah, it's out of control. $50 billion company, 2x already since it's gone public.
Yeah,
Oh,
crazy.
It's like really sophisticated organizations of like 7 and 8 year olds inside Roblox, apparently.
That are way
the next
richer
presidents are coming out of there, man.
Mate, yeah, no doubt.
One last question for Trung, because Trung, you famously or infamously bought ETH and Bitcoin, I think, on the show, or maybe you finished it offline.
It was a week
but
after. I think it's
now. And
dude, I bought
we've
it
all
at
been
30, man. I bought it at 30 on Bitcoin and 2,000 on ETH. Is hilarious. But
There you go, man.
I'm
You're
up
up.
50%, but Jack's
How's
up
that feel?
50 times.
It feels pretty good though, no?
No, I mean, I think it's based on everything we talked about. I'm just looking around and I'm like, this is unacceptable. These returns are unacceptable. It's
Seeing all these
50
rock
50%
JPEGs being
is
sold.
Yeah, literally 50% in 10 weeks. I'm like, this is pathetic. This is pathetic.
I'm not gonna
I'm
make
gonna
it.
give my kids education.
Oh,
That's
man.
it, man. Retirement money. All right,
I should
anyway,
relax more.
let's wrap it up. But yeah, again, big up to our friend Capsun100 with the best review. And as
See if
always,
anyone can
this
top
is
that.
if anyone, let's see if anyone wants to be featured again on the show. We'll read more of these out. So go on to Apple Podcasts, write a little review for us, and we'll read out some of the funny ones if anyone bothers to do it. And as always, join the Telegram group as well. We're sharing a lot of really fun stuff. You know, we normally cover like 3 to 5 things every episode, but we share like 15 or 20 things a week in there, plus a bunch of funny memes and pictures of steak. So join us there as well. And as always, this is not investment advice, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, awesome. Peace out.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.